All right, all right. Greetings, one and all. Glad you could join me. Tonight, I have a guest coming over, elder brethren that has been counseling me on certain things, and I saw him on a program with another good brother, with the brother Quasi, and the brother I'm talking about is Elder Pentecost, and the brethren was over there. They were having an excellent discussion about the Rastafarites, which now they're saying are the first people in the West to reach out to Ethiopia in the early 1900s from Chicago, Illinois. This is new information that I just found out about. So I'm going to try to get Brother Quasi over because he was the one presenting it to the elder. So I'm going to see if I can get Brother Quasi to come and make his presentation here for you all. But you can also just go watch him. You can go watch this episode 402, The Great Debate, Who First Hailed Selassie in the West, and subscribe to the Lion's Voice Network, okay? Real good content, especially for all the young Rastas out there that's watching and the older Rastas too. So go check out the Lion's Voice Network. Tell them Pharaoh sent you over there, and I'm going to get the interview from the brethren. And so there was a little misinformation about FBA. So I wanted to get the elder over here to make sure that he gets the correct information. Um, a lot of people don't know that the whole FBA lineage situation is new and it's being worked out. And so all the information is not being uh, exactly transferred from person to person correctly. Uh, People are mixing up the lineage with the back and forth on X, with the dislikes between the brothers and sisters from Africa and the brothers and sisters from the United States. So people are confusing that with FBA because some of the people that's mixed up in it are FBA, but FBA just means Foundational Black Americans. So people are getting that confused and thinking that Foundational Black Americans is a group. Even a lot of people over here believe, but Foundational Black Americans is not a group. So I'm going to get the elder over here so I could break that down. He was here, but he was here too early, about 45 minutes ago, so he should be popping up soon. And I want to make sure that he gets the correct information so that he won't be alarmed or think that there's a beef going on because it was mentioned of the Diaspora war. And there is no diaspora war. That's definitely a misquote. There is no diaspora war. He was also told that the foundational Black Americans was not going to the braiding shops because we didn't own them. That's also not true. Some sisters had some bad experience. Some foundational Black American sisters who might not even call themselves foundational Black Americans yet. You understand? And so all of this got to be worked out because people don't understand that they call us Black Americans, and foundational Black Americans is the same thing, just with the word foundational in front of it. For my viewers, always remember, you had no problem with calling us Black Americans. All it is the same thing. It just has the words foundational in front of it. That's the best way to know what it is. It's not anything different. It's just a new way of new description of the same people. That's it. It's Black Americans with the word foundational in front of it. And people think it's something new. And we haven't gotten all Black Americans to know about it yet. So it's still growing. So people are making a bunch of confusion. There's a bunch of confusion and misunderstanding about it. Okay? There's a bunch of confusion and there's a bunch of misunderstanding of that. But for my subscribers, my viewers, that's all you have to remember. That is still Black Americans. Okay? It's not different. It's not a group. It's Black Americans. It's just the word foundational Black Americans because people don't understand what Black Americans means. And Black Americans means you're Black and you're an American citizen. So we had to change it because any Black person technically is a Black American. So if you come here from Africa, you would be considered Black. And if you become a citizen, technically you're a Black American because you're not an African. Because they don't go by that. That's why whites are not called Italians. When we talk about the census and government things, they don't call whites Italians and Irish. They call them white Americans. Okay? They call them white Americans. They don't call them Italians, French, and all that. And then they called us Black Americans, which means that it would be just like the whites, that all the blacks would be Black Americans. And all we're saying is we are the foundational Black Americans and they're the other blacks. This is just for government records. This is a division for government records. So I have to explain this to the elder brethren so that uh, he won't get confused, so he'll know, so he won't be alarmed because he was told the wrong thing, and I have to go on the other brother's channel and explain that to him too, so he knows. Because everybody doesn't know this and doesn't keep up with this, and if I didn't keep up with it, I wouldn't know either. I wouldn't know if I didn't keep up with that. So it's not division. Okay, that's false. It's not division. Okay. That's not true. Okay. And many people got that. And there's no beef between black Americans and other blacks. That's also false. There is some internet chatter, but that's not beef. Okay? That's just internet going back and forth. That is not beef. There is nobody in Chicago that is beefing with Africans or people from the Caribbean. Find another word. You know, in Chicago, beef is really beef. Okay? And it leads to violence. There's no beef. There's nobody in Chicago walking around talking about problems with Africans. That's only some people on TikTok and Twitter. That's it. That's it. And it's only sisters trying to get respect when they go to the hair salons where they're spending their money and they want to be treated with a lot of respect. And we've been having this trouble with foreigners a lot. We've been having this trouble at the hair salon and we've been having this trouble with the Koreans at the nail salons. We've been having this trouble with people that service foundational black Americans but don't really like us like that and are not giving us good service based on they consider themselves different from us and take our money and treat us less than, and then they buy into white supremacy and they buy into what white America tells them we are less. That is these people buying into what America is telling them. America is trying to tell them we're the underclass. Except when we're LeBron, except when we're playing basketball. So America's two-faced it. Okay? One minute we're the greatest, and then the next minute we're not. I mean, as far as them already seeing us as less than, that's what we're working on. Because you can't see us as less than and give us good service. And this is what a lot of the foreigners have to understand when they're in the service business. If I'm in the service business, I can't look at my white customers as racist. I'm a businessman. I have to do good business. I can't bring social constructs into business. I can't take a white person's money and then treat them like they're the Ku Klux Klan or something like that. You can't do that. You see, that's the problem. You can't do that like that. And so that is creating a problem. So I'm gonna get the brethren over here. He should be here shortly, too, because he came too early. So that is a problem. And I don't want the elder brethren to believe what he heard on the show from the other brethren who don't know the information too. People on the outside are getting this misconstrued. Lots of people are getting it misconstrued. At first was wondering, but I looked into it closely to get the details. If you just click and just look at a TikTok video or something, you really won't know what's really going on and you'll think it's something different. Okay. The boycott of the African braiders is for respect, has nothing to do with hate. It's from the respect that the Black Americans feel hate. You understand? It's the customers that are feeling the hate. It's not the customers hating. Who's gonna go and have somebody braid their hair if they hate them? So if there's a problem, it's got to be the person serving because the other people are coming to you free will. It's got to be the Africans doing the braiding. You can't tell me that Black Americans are going to get their hair braided and they don't like you. That, come on. No, they're going to get their hair braided. You're making money, but you don't really like them, but you want the money. Okay? Now that's what's going on. Okay? That's what's going on. So we'll have to tell the truth about these situations. Nobody wants to go up in your place and you treat them bad. This is one reason so many Mexicans do yards and stuff in the Black community because they don't treat you bad. They just stay professional. They just come, cut the grass, stay out the way, and go. They don't talk to you bad or nothing. You say, "Could you cut that like that?" Yes, I got it. That's it. They keep it professional. They don't show no attitude or anything. They don't show any emotions. This is why they work in the Black community because they don't do that. They don't talk to you. They try to do the work so fast that they don't even have time to talk to you. But when you request something, they are very easy to get along with, and they do it. I go up on South Chicago when I need a used tire or something on my raggedy car that I be driving that won't break down, and I'll take it over there and just put a $15 tire on there, and they'll pop it up and put it on there. Thank you, my friend, and that's it. No attitude, no bad vibes, no vibes at all. Just changing the tire and get you on your way. No bad vibes, no bad vibes at all. Let me see where the brethren is at. So I'm going to get the brother over here. And we're going to get all that straightened out. It's just a big, huge misunderstanding. Okay. And some people are keeping it going, but you have to understand that some people like what my parents used to call a lot of rigmarole. So some people enjoy um, the confusion, you know? Some people enjoy that. Good to see you, Cushite. Let me shout out everybody. Rep your city. I'm representing Chicago, Illinois. And rep your city. We give a shout out to everybody as we have this very interesting conversation tonight. For sure. We got Baton Rouge in the building.
The wireless customer you are calling is not available.
We got Atlanta, Georgia in the building. We got South Carolina. We got Louisiana in the building. Of course, you know I'm representing Chicago, Illinois. We got the South Pacific in the building. We got San Francisco in the building. We got Atlanta, Georgia in the building. We got Indianapolis, Indiana in the building. We have the UK in the building. And our guest is here. Let's wait until he pops up on the screen. And we'll be ready to rock and roll. And this is going to be great. And then I'm going to have him break down what is going on with him. Yes, brethren.
Yes, I don't really have a camera, the camera not working on my computer. And I'm using the computer because the phone where the camera is working is not working. The phone itself is not working.
So okay.
I can't figure it out so quick. So I just have to come on now without a camera.
All right, that's fine, brethren. That's fine. And
yes,
I'll have you come another day so everybody can see you, right?
Exactly.
While you're talking to me, you could be playing with your phone. Now, the main reason I got you over here, brethren, is because I seen an interview you did with the good brother. Can you see me though?
Oh, yeah, man. I can see you.
Okay. So you did an interview with the good brethren the other day, right?
Yes.
And I felt like, you're very special to me. You've always looked out for me. And I felt you got some misinformation. And I don't think the brother did it intentionally. I don't think he realized what is going on. Okay. This was with the brother Quasi. Remember this interview?
Yeah, man.
So he was telling you about FBA, remember?
Well, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, about Foundation of Black Americans, and he was talking about a diaspora war.
Okay.
There is no diaspora war, brethren.
Well, I don't think I said it. Maybe he did.
He did, but he said it to you. So I wanted to make sure, in case you heard it that I would tell you, right?
Okay.
In case you heard it. So there is no diaspora war. There is a term, foundational Black Americans.
Right.
And all that is, brethren, when you hear that in the future, that's nothing but Black American with the word foundational in front of it.
Okay.
So it's the same thing as Black American.
Okay.
And the reason the word was added is because when other Blacks come to the United States and they get citizenship, technically they are Black Americans.
Okay.
So we wanted to make a distinction between the Black Americans that have been here since slavery and the other Blacks, because for us to get our reparations with the United States government, we have to trace our lineage back to the 1800s.
Okay.
So for Black Americans, for foundational Black Americans to get our reparations, we have to prove that we was here in the 1800s for the government to give us reparations for the slavery in the United States.
Okay.
So that is the only reason that we're making that distinction, is for the government. It's not against other Black people.
Okay.
It's a government issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just governmental.
Okay.
It doesn't represent any division. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you, my brethren, and you're the elder, and I wanted to make sure you knew the truth, so you wouldn't have heard something that had been misunderstood.
Okay.
Okay, so there is no division between Black people. The foundational Black Americans, we're not warring with Black people. We're battling the government for reparations on what they did to our grandparents and great grandparents in the South during slavery. That's it.
Okay.
All right.
Yes,
So
sir.
so what I'm going to do is I want them to see you and talk to you. So I'm gonna have you come tomorrow, try to figure out your phone. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna have you come tomorrow because I want them to hear and see you. They need to see the elder, right? Because you something to see. And for a lot of these young people, they really haven't never been around an elder like yourself. All right.
Okay.
So I appreciate you coming. So I will bring you again tomorrow because I want you to tell them about the everything, the Ethiopian World Federation. I want to have all that conversation too. All right.
Okay.
All right. So get some rest, brethren. I appreciate you and I love you, and stay strong. Rastafari every time.
Every time.
All right. So that's the brethren. I really wanted to get that straight. I'm not gonna interview him until you all can see him. I need you all to see him because seeing is believing, right? So I want you all to see the brethren because this is a serious elder brother, the one with the black hat on. And he's been doing it a long time. And he absolutely loves Black Americans. Absolutely. He's infatuated with Black Americans. He lives up, I think, in New York right now. He's been in America for a while, but he's definitely infatuated with Black Americans. Right? No. We have not delineated from non-FBA and tethers who refuse to move up out our pathway to reparations. No, that is false information, Reverend. We have delineated. Okay, let me ask you something. What does delineate mean, brother? because even the way you're using it, you don't understand what you're saying. You cannot delineate. Delineate does not mean what you're saying. Delineate has nothing to do with separating from anybody. You are giving people the wrong information, Reverend, or maybe somebody gave you the wrong information. Okay? Delineate. Okay? Delineate means, I'm not a nice guy, I'm just intelligent. Delineate means describe or portray precisely. That's what it means. To describe or portray precisely. This has nothing to do with other blacks. This has everything to do with reparations from white Americans. Other blacks don't owe us reparations. What you are promoting is against reparations because it's a distraction. And you've been listening to the arguments, so you've been misguided, okay? So you need to learn. Delineate means we're describing exactly who we are, not to separate from anybody, but for the United States government to know who exactly is owed reparations. That has nothing to do with anyone else at all. You're misinformed. And we really don't know if you who you say you are because we can't see you. We can't see your picture. So you could easily be an agent of Reverend Greenbacks because even your name is foul. You're not using a real name. And I don't know who you are. Okay? So I cannot take you serious, and I don't find you to be helpful to this discussion. And I find you to be a troll. What you need to do is come back with a real name if you're going to pretend you're standing on real business, okay? So come back tomorrow. Go get a real name and come back tomorrow, okay? Because I'm not listening to no Reverend Greenbucks try to talk about something real, okay? You're not real. Why would I listen to you? I'm not listening to no fake internet dude. Just like that. You could be anybody. You could be the FBI. You can be a government agent. You could be a bot. They have these bots where they have hundreds of thousands of phones that come into your conversations. You understand? But we can still talk about this conversation to the audience here. You should not and must not get involved with beefing with other blacks. Period. Beefing with other blacks is a distraction. That's all it is. It is a way to distract you from reparations. Period. It's not helpful whatsoever. You cannot fight two wars. You must make your mind. Do you want to get reparations from the white American government or do you want to beef with black immigrants? You have to make your decision. It's as simple as that. Do you want to battle with the United States government and get reparations, or do you want to argue with black immigrants for nothing? because they do not have your reparations. And where I come from, anytime you're arguing somewhere where there's no benefits, you're a sucker. There is no benefits in arguing with Black immigrants. There is benefits with boycotting salons or nail shops that aren't treating you right. But that's not arguing, that's work, that's boycotting. But as far as being on the internet, posting the word tether more than you're posting the word reparations is counterproductive. Period. To get reparations, we're not here for a love fest. We shouldn't be trying to talk about who we love. We shouldn't be talking about who we like. We shouldn't be talking about who we don't like. We should be talking about the United States government cutting a check. Just like that. That's what we should be talking about. Okay? That's what we should be talking about. Every time you get into the tether wars, you're taking your foot off the gas for reparations. If you look at the reparations movement, it's weaker. It's weaker because it has been co-opted and misled and is spending too much time on other Blacks. And any revolutionary would tell you that if you're spending a lot of time on Black, it means you're a punk. It means you're scared of the whites, which is a typical trait of Black people worldwide. You always got the most smoke for your own. You ain't never got no smoke for the others. Never. You don't have the same smoke. You understand? For them. I'm not tolerating anybody off subject today. Okay? We talk about what I'm talking about. Period. If you ain't on what I'm talking about, get out my chat. Period. Come over here and push for reparations for foundational Black Americans or be gone. Because if you're not coming over here pushing that, you're an agent on the payroll or for free. But either way, you're COINTELPRO agent in the way of reparations. Period. Point blank, period. We cannot get reparations without applying pressure to the government, to the banks, to the businesses that made money off of our enslavement. Anytime something else is a bigger enemy to you than the actual businesses that enslaved your ancestors, you're a loser and you're not qualified to be in any type of position to talk about reparations at all. Me running reparations, you would be led out of the room not to be able to join the conversation. You would be an agent to me, a distractor. And a coward. Because you don't want to go after the big fish that owe you the money. Anytime you don't want to go after the one that actually owe you the money, you're a sucker. Period. I don't care if you're some Black militant, you're a sucker. You ain't no militant. You can't lead black people nowhere because you're going to lead them. You ain't going to lead them at the enemy. You're going to lead them to some side nonsense. Who going to go to, if you go into war with somebody over here, would you follow somebody and say, we need to go over there? But here's the enemy, and you saying, go this way. Let's go over there. You saying, let's go over there. Because you don't want, because you a coward. For all you black men that ain't going at the government for reparations, y'all cowards. Y'all cowards. You're just, if you're a black American, foundational black American, and you ain't standing against the government to get reparations for what they did to your ancestors, you are a coward. I would never go to Africa with you. You're a coward. You're fold. You're a coward. All right? How do you get the families? It ain't families that owe you. It's businesses and corporations that owe you. And the United States government owe you because the United States government let the business and the corporations do it. So see the planet, just the fact they ain't taught you that it's not from the families, just show you people that haven't been doing their job. Because you got white Americans that think they got to pay reparations, and they don't. Slavery was corporate. No slave owner went and got no slaves. Where did the slave owner get the slaves from? From corporate America. Slave owners didn't get in boats. Farmers down south didn't get in boats and go get no slaves. Them slaves was brought by corporations. The cotton was sponsored by corporations. The farms were sponsored by corporations. The whole business transaction was funded by corporations. They even sold the slave clothes. Now you tell me why nobody knows this. It's because the teachings have not been done right. That's why. You are supposed to know this. Why you don't know it? Why people don't? Because you're busy arguing with Africans. So how could you know? Exhibit this. These are the people that owe us the money.
13 corporations that profited from slavery. So here we go. Number 1, J.P. Morgan Chase. Between 1831 and 1865, 2 predecessor banks, Citizens Bank and Canal Bank in Louisiana, accepted approximately 13,000 enslaved individuals as collateral on loans and took ownership of approximately 1,250 of them when the plantation owners defaulted on the loans. Number 2, New York Life, an insurance company, sold insurance policies on enslaved Africans. Number 3, Wachovia. 2 historical predecessors owned enslaved Africans and accepted them as payment. Number 4, N.M. Rothschild and Sons Bank in London. Nathan Mayer Rothschild The banking family's 19th century
In London. Are you listening?
patriarch made personal gains by using enslaved Africans as collateral in dealings with a slave owner. I have a list of this, so if I stumble, it's because I have a lot of chicken scratch. Number 4, Norfolk Southern.
Norfolk Southern. That's the train companies. Norfolk. Listen.
Offered slaveholders $180. That's $3,379 today. This article was written in 2013. So that's $3,379 today a piece for enslaved Africans they would rent to the railroad for 1 year. The Central Georgia, another company aligned with Norfolk Southern Line today, valued slaves at $31,303. Today that would be $663,033. Did I say that right? Yes. $663,033. Hopefully that came out right. Sounds weird. Number 5. U.S. Today found that their parent company, E.W. Scripps and Gannett, had links to the slave trade. Number 6. Fleet Boston evolved from an early financial institution.
An early financial institution. Listen.
Providence Bank, founded John Brown, who was a slave trader and owned ships used to transport enslaved Africans. The bank financed Brown's slave voyage.
They financed the slave ships. Are you listening?
And profited from them. Brown even reportedly helped charter what became Brown University. Number 7. CSX used slave labor to construct portions of U.S. rail lines under the political and legal system that was in place more than a century ago. 2 enslaved Africans were John Henry and Reuben. The record states they were to be returned clothed when they arrived to work for the company. Number 8. Canadian National Railway Company. The mobile and
Canadian National Railway Company. So when you hear somebody say, who gonna pay? They ain't listening and they not learning.
Ohio, now part of Canadian National, valued their slaves lost to the war and emancipation at $199,000.
Their slaves lost in emancipation. They wanted to get paid for us being free. Companies. Now, when this is done, I'm going to break the whole play down. Okay?
$691 on record. That amount is currently worth $2.2 million. Whew. Number 9. Brown Brothers Harriman, the oldest and largest private investment bank.
Investment bank. Are y'all listening to who was really behind slavery?
Founded 1818. Owned hundreds of enslaved Africans and financed the cotton economy by lending millions to Southern planters, merchants, and cotton brokers.
They was giving them the money for the seed, for the cotton, for the equipment, for everything. The whole process was funded from the North, Canada and New York and Philadelphia.
Number 10, Brooks Brothers.
Brooks Brothers Clothing. Are you listening?
High-end suit retailer. Got their start selling slave clothes.
Did you hear that? They bringing in millions of slaves and they selling the outfits. All right. When you go to the Cook County Jail, who make the DOCs, the jail clothes? Same people. Who make the jail clothes? Who make the prison clothes? Same slavery. You know, the striped outfits and the outfits they wear in prison? Somebody make those and sells them to the prison. They switched slavery when they freed the blacks, and then they came up with the prison system and said, when you go to prison, you what? You have no rights. A slave. So the same people that sold the prison clothes are selling the Cook County jail clothes and the prison clothes. Listen.
To various slave traders in the 1800s. They got their start by selling slave clothes. Number 11, Barclays. British multinational banking and
British again. British again. British. So who always the British got to pay? Mind you, the British was also invested in slavery where? In the Caribbean, in Jamaica.
financial services company headquartered in London, has now conceded that companies brought over the years may have been involved in the slave trade. Number 12, Lehman Brothers. This business empire started in the slave trade. Quote from Joe Pelizotto. This is a sad part of our history or our heritage. We're deeply apologetic. It was a terrible thing. There's no one sitting in the United States.
Yes, Kushai Selassie. I'm giving them game, right? They're getting it raw.
States in the year 2005, hopefully, who would ever in a million years defend the practice. 13, Aetna. Aetna? Aetna. U.S. largest health insurer. Apologize.
Health insurance. They was insuring the slaves. Y'all just don't know.
For selling policies in the 1850s that reimbursed slave owners for financial losses when the enslaved Africans they owned died.
They was taking insurance out on us and getting insurance policies on the slaves. Are you listening? Exactly, the Planet 70, the whole Caribbean.
Aetna has long acknowledged that for several years, shortly after its founding in 1853, that the company may have insured the lives of slaves. A few other people or a few other corporations, companies that profited from slavery: Princeton, Harvard Law School, Tiffany & Co., Bank of America,
Tiffany's, the jewelry people,
Yale University,
Yale,
and Wells Fargo.
So when people say, who owes us? You just heard who owe us. Now I'm going to give it to you in the raw. I'm going to give you the whole play. I'm going to give you the whole play. Send this to everybody. You could just chop this part off. I'm going to give you the whole play. This is how it happened. The Europeans came on the East Coast. After a while, they got there and pissed up and they set up their banks in New York. They was doing business with banks and companies in Canada. So they got their banks in New York, on the East Coast, Philadelphia, New York, right? The 13 colonies on, right? They said, go west, young man, go west, right? So they started going west. So they began to build the railroad, what? From the east to the west. Who funded the railroad? The banks and stuff from Canada and New York and Philadelphia. So as they build a railroad and they go so far and have a town, the banks and the rich on the east finance the towns. So they build a train, they start to finance each little town. You can see the old cowboy pictures when the stagecoach come from the east, from New York, and they more fancy than the sheriff and everybody in the town, and the fancy lady get out, okay? So they began to go west, young man, and they began to build a railroad, and then they began to set up little banks that the Jesse James and them would rob, and they fortified the banks to prevent robbery. And then those trains would pick all the money up when it goes back east and take the money to the rich bankers on the east. The cattle industry is where they're getting all their money. They're beginning to have farms in the South. The banks in the East, right, funded the sharecroppers. So the white slave owners was broke. They had nothing. The banks in the East funded them, the land and the slaves. Y'all listening? So these banks and stuff and these financial people, they set up these whites with the land and the slaves. They owned all of that. So these whites were sharecropping slaves and using the slaves to sharecrop cotton. Now the ones that's the most prosper, that's got the most money, they got the most slaves. So this guy might got 1,000 slaves. This guy might got 2,000 slaves. They rolling. This guy might only got 100 slaves. This guy might only got 200 slaves. So they not. You with me? When it's time to get their money, the train go east to west. It don't go north to south. So they got to ride and send the cavalry or the army, a bunch of troops down to collect the money when it's time for you to pay for your slaves and your land. Okay? So now the ones that had a lot, they could pay. The other ones got behind. So now they owe the government a lot of money. They owe the banks, and the rich people a lot of money. And the cavalry and the military works for the banks and stuff. Ride with me. The North up there, they're developing stuff. So they start developing the cotton gin, and the rich ones could afford the cotton gin and the poor ones couldn't. So now as they developing the cotton gins, they get to the point where they don't have to fund the slaves anymore. But first, they got to have the big ones with a lot of slaves making money. This is the first industrial farming. They want the big ones to take everything. Right. So the government, one government, the North, the Yankees, would come down and kick the poor slave owners, poor sharecroppers off their land because they defaulted on these loans that you just heard her tell you that the people was giving them. They couldn't pay for the slave clothes. They couldn't pay for the slaves, and they have a bad year and don't got no cotton. As long as they had cotton, they would break even, but they would never make no money. Only the big ones would. So when the North kept coming and kicking them off their land, the ones in the South that was poor got together and said, we need to form our own army because these Yankees is robbing us, and they formed the Confederate Army. And that's what started the Civil War. Because they had robbed them white folks. They had made them sharecrop. They owed for the slaves. They owed for the cotton. They owed for the land, and they was broke, and the North was going to take everything. So the whites created an army. Everything they tell you about the Civil War is a lie. This is why it was a Civil War. And now the North say, we don't need them blacks down there. We got fancy tractors. We got the cotton gin, and all this cotton is coming up here. We done built steamships. They built the steamship from slavery, and now they could bring the cotton up to Mississippi and then bring it across the short way across instead of all the way from down there. So the North come down with the military to kick the whites off the land because they had pimped them. They pimped them. So they formed the Confederate to fight, right? And they said that they was fighting to free the slaves. No, they was fighting to take white people's land because the North owned the slaves. Those wasn't slave owners, those were slave sharecroppers. They did not own them slaves. They had to pay for them slaves. Them slaves was being rented. And you had to pay every year. How they own the slaves when the North got insurance on them? Whoever got insurance on you, own you. No, them whites didn't own no slaves. They was renting them slaves. So now the North say, we don't need you no more. Send our blacks up here to work up here. Because we belonged to the North. We never belonged to the South. Never. The South didn't have no money. The only people who had money was the North. You just heard all the companies was Northern companies. They funded the whole operation. The North funded the whole operations, the trains, the banks across the country, the steamships, and all the slaves, and all the cotton, and all the other crops was paid for by the North. And every year, the whites would be further in debt in the South. And once they got them so far in the hole and they had enough money to change the operation, they said, we're going to come, you let the blacks free. They didn't want us free. They said, send our slaves up here. Send our property up here. We was property of the North. And the whites built the Confederate Army to fight to keep the slaves that they never owned so it wouldn't get repossessed. Look at the slaves as a bunch of cars down there, and they couldn't pay for them, and the North was going to come and repo all the cars and foreclose all the houses. And so now the North was like, we don't need you no more. We need our slaves up here. Nobody gonna tell you this but me. They didn't need you down there no more. They got plenty of cotton coming up north, and they ain't got nobody to process the cotton up north. The cotton is coming, and now you're getting so much cotton. Now you got to have factories. You got to make shirts. You got to make socks. You got to make clothes. So you need somebody to work in the factory. You even need somebody to move the cotton around. See, look at this picture. Look at the white gangsters and look at the blacks moving all that cotton from the South. So they're like, we got enough cotton. We can get the cotton without y'all. Look, this picture don't show you that they needed the blacks up here. They had already figured out how to get the cotton. They didn't need the blacks to pick no more cotton. They need the blacks to be up here to process and get the North running. They making bank. So they said, instead of us giving money to the slave owners, we'll just pay the blacks a salary. So they bought us up here and paid us the salary instead of giving it to them up front for cotton seed and land. They didn't have to do that no more. They could just have us come up here and work for wages less than what the white people work for and just pay us directly because they needed us up here because too much cotton coming. See, don't just look like too much cotton was coming. More cotton was coming to the North than they could do something with. Just look at it. This picture says it all. So much cotton was coming, they needed them people up here. They like, hey, we done figured out how to get this cotton. We got the cotton gin and all that. We need y'all up here. We ain't got nobody up here to move this stuff. They never freed the slaves from the South because the South didn't own the slaves. The North owned the slaves. They just sent our slaves up here, and the South didn't want to do it. The South was mad because they had got raped by the North. And that's what caused the Revolutionary War. Lincoln wasn't your friend. Lincoln wanted you up here because the business was up here. And tell me I'm lying, from that point on, where did Black Americans work? In the North, driving bus, driving cabs, working on the trains, working in all these businesses. So by the time my generation come, how many jobs was up here? Black people had mad jobs. Why do you think so many black people in Chicago? Because it was jobs. They needed you up here. They didn't need you down there. They finna do industrial farming. They finna take all them people land, and it's just gonna be one big farm as far as you can see. What kind of farming is going on in the South now? Is it small farms? No. It's industrial farming. Drive to Alabama, and you're gonna see them big ass sprinklers. People in the South know I'm talking about big sprinklers that's just watering acres. Airplanes flying, putting the pesticides. Ain't no little farms no more. Ain't no little farms in the South. It's only industrial farming. Acres and acres. That was the era of the Civil War where they were going into industrial farming. Nope. They went and took all them people's land. So they take 20 people's land and make it just one big piece of land. Y'all get off. So the whites put the Confederate together to fight because the North had cheated them. They lying on the South. They lying on the South. Where was the slavery at, BJ? DJ, come on, DJ. Stop. You know it wasn't. You know slavery wasn't in South America, bro. Stop. You know slavery was in the South. You know what I'm talking about. I said the Confederate, bro. Where was the Confederate? The Confederate? There was a Confederate army in South America, bro. Stop. I'm saying the Confederate. You don't know what the Confederate army is? What's really going on? Bro, you don't know this flag? You don't know what the Confederate flag is? Stop it. That's how it really went. That's what really happened. The whites in the South did never own nothing. Whites in the South didn't own nothing. They lying on the South. They didn't own nothing. They was renting slaves and they was sharecropping cotton and stuff for the North. They was working for whoever processed it. Whoever processed the cotton owns the slaves. If you picking cotton, picking it for who? Who was the slaves picking the cotton for? Who was they picking it for? Them. Look at them gangsters in them suits. Look at the gangster on your left with the long coat with his hand on his piece. You don't see him? It's three gangsters there. It's the bookkeeper, it's the boss with the white handkerchief, with the jacket next to the bookkeeper, and it's the gangster, the shooter with the long coat on with his hands in his pocket on your left. Gangsters. You can look and see. You see the one with the short, with the jacket on, next to the one in the white coat to your right, to his right? You see that gangster? You see the shooter in the long coat on the left? All you got to do is look and see. Them the ones that owned them people in the South. And if you didn't pay, they sent the army down there to take your land and kick you off. So the whites in the South put an army together to stop them from taking their land. But it was never their land. It was never their land. They was poor white people. They didn't have nothing. Ask yourself how some poor white people had slaves. They didn't. All that was fronted to them by Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and all the companies I just showed you. Owned them slaves. Them people didn't own nothing. Them the North brought them down there and auctioned them off, and then when you bought them, they gave you a commissary note. They gave you a thing. This is how much you owe. How many slaves you want? You auctioned. I want that one. I want that one. And then you had to pay. You had to pay for the slaves. You had to pay for the seed. And you had to pay for the land. And when the North, the story don't end there. When the North went down there and took their land, they had the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. The North won. What did the grandchildren do in the South once they lost all their land to the North? Go in the chat and answer this. What did the children and the grandchildren do in the South after their grandparents and parents lost their land in the South? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. I'm finna blow y'all mind. Put it in the chat. What did the grandchildren and the children of the South do once their relatives lost their land? Put it in the chat. You rocking with the realest live. Nobody telling this history. When you see people do it, you know they stole it from me. I'm giving it to you free. These could be books. This could be books. But I'm giving it to you free. Something you ain't gonna hear nowhere. Sue for bank reparations? No. Nope. Nope. They started Nope. Nope. They started robbing banks. This is Bonnie and Clyde right there. They started robbing banks because the banks had took and foreclosed on their parents' and grandparents' property. Tell me these don't look like the grandchildren and children of the people in the South after the Confederate. This is Bonnie and Clyde right here. Nobody gonna tell you this. Tell me I'm lying. Just put two and two together. They started robbing banks. They started robbing banks, and there was no FBI. Remember? There was no FBI. So they would rob the bank, and if they could make it across state line, the police had to stop chasing them. And this was all because people lost all that land in the South. They was mad, and the banks was behind it. So they robbed the banks. They're not going to tell you all that. They're not going to tell you that. They don't want you to know the whole story, because then you know the banks was in on it. They're not finna tell you that. They're not finna tell you that. But if you think about what I'm saying and put it all together, you tell me it don't make no sense. There is a movie about that. That's how I learned that. I seen the movie, and it was a young man in the South, and they had took his family's land, and he started robbing banks. Straight up. If you look at the time period, and you look when they start robbing them banks, and match that time period with the Civil War. The Civil War was 1861 to 1865. So by the time the Civil War is over, you're looking at about 40 years, and it's the 1900s. You're looking at 60 years, right? And it's the 1940s and stuff like that. Put the math together. Them the grandchildren, that they grandparents and stuff lost everything. John Dillinger was born in 1903. Do the math. John Dillinger was born in 1903. Do the math. Do the math. Do the math. Civil War ended in 1865, 65, 75, 85, 90, 03. John Dillinger born. Meaning he born either by the parents that lost their land, or they was his grandparents. And they was dirt poor by then. You can imagine how bad they was 40 years after the North took that land and beat them in the Civil War. So they ain't going to tell you the real history. You ain't going to get this nowhere. You ain't going to get this. This is what really happened. That's John Dillinger right there. 1903. Born 1903. Did what? Robbing banks. Bonnie and Clyde did what? Robbing banks. All through what? The South and the Midwest. They wasn't up north robbing them banks. I don't know the name of the movie. I just happened to catch it. You know how you watch a movie, you ain't expecting you're going to keep watching it. It was many years ago. I remember the name of it. But the man was robbing banks, because his granddaddy lost his stuff. Yeah, Ned Kelly was born in 1854. 1854. Passed away in 1880. Absolutely. But that's in Australia. That got nothing to do with. Why you ask me about somebody in Australia? Some of y'all weird as hell. But why'd you ask me about somebody in Australia? Bro, ask me something relevant, okay? What would Australia have to do with what happened in the US? Got me looking that up for nothing. Come on, man. Y'all, you gotta do better than that. Ask me about somebody. Bro, what you ask me about somebody in Australia? I'm telling you. Jesse James, 1847. Say 1847. 1847. Civil War, 1861. Right? So why was Jesse James robbing? Because them was the ones robbing the banks out west. Remember I told you? The banks started going out west first. So Jesse James and them was robbing those banks. They didn't have nothing to do with what had going on down south, but they was robbing the banks that was coming west because the East banks was exploiting the West too. It was rich dudes in the West buying them towns, all them towns across to the West, where you see all them cowboy movies is. None of the people from out there is from out there because they all what? Went west. They said, go west, young man, go west. So as white Americans started going west, the rich banks, the ones that owned the railroad and built the towns. So they was pimping everybody else. Everybody else was just out there starving. You like a cattle hand making nothing. Then you got to raise these cattle, and then what do they do in the movies? They bring all the cattle to the nearest town. When they bring the cattle to the town, there's a ranch right outside the town for all the cattle, and the mayor and the rich dudes in the town pay them for the cattle. And then the train come and get the cattle and take the cattle east to be slaughtered for the meat for New York, Philadelphia, and all of them. So Jesse James and them is out there starving because the whites in New York and that area owned the whole United States. They owned all the stuff going west, and they owned all the stuff down south. The banks, who own everything still today. Every house in America is owned by the banks. And then once you pay your house up to the bank, then the politicians and the government want their property taxes. So you constantly being pimped by the businesses. And the headquarters for all the businesses is on the east. Hollywood's in California, but the money for Hollywood is on the east. Where Washington, D.C. at? On the east. So Jesse James in there was robbing for the same reason Bonnie and Clyde was robbing, but just earlier because they was pimping white people. The rich people owned everything. And the rich people on the east, if you was out there and you was good with the gun, what they would do? They would find the fastest gun, right? And the people on the east would do what? Pay the fastest gun to go to town and lay you down. How many movies you see where a guy is the fastest gun? He's faster than everybody out there. All of a sudden, a stagecoach comes and a dude get out with all black on with his hat down, and they show, and this is the one that they sent out there, right, to shoot this other one because he's causing problems with the money. So the bank was sending hitmen. They find out who's the fastest gun that's faster than you, and they pay him to go to that town to lay you down. They might even make him what? The sheriff. The banks on the east was sending them sheriffs to them towns to make sure you stay your ass in line and get that money and put that money in the bank. So when the train or the stagecoach comes, you could put that money in there to take it to them rich dudes on the east. That's why they was robbing the stagecoach too. Because they was taking all them people money. Go watch an old cowboy picture and see that one guy owned the whole town. But they never tell you that guy is bought and paid for by somebody on the east. And every time that guy that owned the town have too much problems, he would send for somebody. Send from where? Where would them super fast gunmen, where were they coming from? Who was sending them there to help the mean guy that run the town? The banks on the east. When you watch them cowboy pictures, you see the stagecoach come and you see the beautiful lady dressed better than all the ladies in the town, and she would have dude and they dressed way better. Where they was from? The east. Next time you watch cowboy movies, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see, damn, he right. Everything was being controlled by the same banks that I just showed you that was behind slavery. They was behind the cattle industry, the railroad, the cotton industry, and slavery. They ran the whole country when everybody else was just a servant, including white America. Slavery, they were sharecropping slaves. They didn't own them slaves. How you own the slaves and you buying clothes from Brooks Brothers for the slaves? You know you ain't got no money to pay for it. Sharecropping go like this. We give you seeds, we give you this stuff, and we know once you grow the stuff, you're going to break even. So now next year we got to do what? We got to give you some more. So you constantly owe us. You grow, you pay us. You grow, you pay us. You pay us. Oh, your slaves died? Okay, we got them insured. Sign right here, we give you 20 more slaves. But you owe us for these slaves. Sign right here. We'll take it out your crops. Y'all know that's how it was going. Y'all know damn well them people didn't own no slaves. Them poor white people down there didn't own no doggone slaves. Them they was okay. They was renting them slaves. They was renting them slaves. I bet you they had to pay for every baby them slaves had. I bet you they was going out there doing head counts. How many you got now? Okay, we got to tax you for these. How many slaves our babies didn't have? Okay, we ain't going to charge you what we charge you for adults. I guarantee you. They charge them people for everything. Them people was flat broke. Exactly. When you start thinking about this and you look at all them cowboy pictures, now it makes a lot of sense. They can't tell you that because they don't want you to know the North owned the slaves. They want you to think the South owned the slaves. The South didn't own shit. They were sharecropping and they was renting slaves. The North owned the entire country. That's why the bank robbers was robbing them. Guys, yourself, why was they hell-bent on just robbing stagecoaches and robbing trains and robbing banks? Because they was getting mistreated. These are facts. And when Lincoln got out of line, they popped him. They didn't pop him. When he didn't do what they told him to do, they popped him. It wasn't just slavery. It was trains, cattle, slavery, and property. That was all was together. The slave owners had to pay for the property and the slaves and the seeds. They had to pay for the cotton seeds or whatever they was growing. They had to pay for the bags of seeds. They had to pay for the prop. They had to pay the mortgage on the property. They had to pay for the slaves. They had to pay for everything to the North. So they was in deep debt. They try to make you think the slaves was sold by themselves. That's a lie. The whole deal was worked from the North. This is why the white people down there got mad and built the army to fight against the bankers in the North. But the bankers in the North had more money, so they could fund the army up north, so the army down south didn't have a chance. They got their ass wiped out. They ain't had no money to go to war with them bankers. The army up north said, we own these slaves. They the one got slaves. They took a lot of the slaves they ain't sold yet and put them in uniforms and had them fight for the North. Where you think they got the blacks from to fight from the North? Them was some slaves they was going to sell. But they said, no, we ain't going to sell these. We're going to make these go fight. They're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to tell you the truth. The whole slavery was funded by the North. I just played you the video early on who owned the slaves. I just played it for you. We're going to play it one more time so people that came late can see what we're talking about. You tell me who funded the cowboys, the land, and everything. You tell me. Listen to this and tell me who funded everything.
13 corporations that profited from slavery. So here we go. Number 1, J.P. Morgan Chase. Between 1831 and 1865, 2 predecessor banks, Citizens Bank and Canal Bank in Louisiana, accepted approximately 13,000 enslaved individuals as collateral on loans and took ownership of approximately 1,250 of them when the plantation owners defaulted on the loans.
When the plantation owners did what? When the plantation owners did what? Hold on.
Predecessor banks, Citizens Bank and Canal Bank in Louisiana, accepted approximately 13,000 enslaved individuals as collateral on loans and took ownership of approximately 1,250 of them when the plantation owners defaulted on the loans.
How they take 1,250 slaves if you defaulted on the loan unless the slaves was included in the loan? Think about that.
Number 2, New York Life, an insurance company, sold insurance policies on enslaved Africans.
So the insurance policy, you can't sell, if you sell insurance policies on them, that means you own them basically. If you insure a car, that means you don't own the car. That means you bought it from him and insured with him. So with slaves, to get insurance, you bought it from them and you insured it to them. You don't own them. That's why you got to have insurance on them. Do you have to have insurance on something that you totally own? No. Why they got insurance on slaves? Because they ain't theirs. So if something happened to them, you got to pay somebody. So you got to take insurance. So if something happened to them, the insurance company would pay the company that you owe for.
Number 3, Wachovia. 2 historical predecessors owned enslaved Africans and accepted them as payment. Number 4, N.M. Rothschild and Sons Bank in London. Nathan Mayer Rothschild.
All them banks is involved. Now you telling me that them banks didn't own them slaves? It's just bank, bank, bank. The banks owned the slaves and was basically renting them out. Or, you know what I'm saying? If they sell them to you, you wasn't buying them straight out. They was selling them to you the same way they sell you a car. They sell you a car and you got to make payments for 3 years.
Rothschild, the banking family's 19th century patriarch, made personal gains by using enslaved Africans as collateral in dealings with a slave owner. I have a list of this, so if I stumble, it's because I have a lot of chicken scratch. Number 4, Norfolk Southern offered slaveholders $180, that's $3,379 today. This article was written in 2013. So that's $3,379 today a piece for enslaved Africans they would rent to the railroad for 1 year. The Central Georgia, another company aligned with Norfolk Southern Line today, valued slaves at $31,303. Today that would be $663,033. Did I say that right? Yes. $663,033. Hopefully that came out right. Sounds weird. Number 5. U.S. Today found that their parent company, E.W. Scripps and Gannett, had links to the slave trade. Number 6. Fleet Boston evolved from an early financial institution. Providence Bank founded John Brown, who was a slave trader and owned ships used to transport enslaved Africans. The bank financed Brown's slave voyages and profited from them. Brown even reportedly helped charter what became Brown University. Number 7. CSX used slave labor to construct portions of U.S. rail lines under the political and legal system that was in place more than a century ago. 2 enslaved Africans were John Henry and Reuben. The record states they were to be returned clothed when they arrived to work for the company. Number 8. Canadian National Railway Company. The Mobile and Ohio, now part of Canadian National, valued their slaves lost to the war and emancipation at $199,691 on record. That amount is currently worth $2.2 million. Whew. Number 9. Brown Brothers Harriman, the oldest and largest private investment bank, founded 1818, owned hundreds of enslaved Africans and financed the cotton economy by lending millions to Southern planters, merchants, and cotton brokers. Number 10. Brooks Brothers, high-end suit retailer, got their start selling slave clothes to various slave traders in the 1800s. They got their start by selling slave clothes. Number 11, Barclays. British multinational banking and financial services company headquartered in London, has now conceded that companies brought over the years may have been involved in the slave trade. Number 12, Lehman Brothers. This business empire started in the slave trade. Quote from Joe Pelizzotto: "This is a sad part of our history or our heritage. We're deeply apologetic. It was a terrible thing. There's no one sitting in the United States in the year 2005, hopefully, who would ever in a million years defend the practice." 13. Aetna. Aetna? Aetna. U.S. largest health insurer, apologized for selling policies in the 1850s that reimbursed slave owners for financial losses when the enslaved Africans they owned died. Aetna has long acknowledged that for several years shortly after its founding in 1853, that the company may have insured the lives of slaves. A few other people or a few other corporations, companies that profited from slavery: Princeton, Harvard Law School, Tiffany & Co., Bank of America, Yale University, and Wells Fargo.
So as you can see, mostly insurance companies and banks, which proves that the whites in the South did not own the slaves, that they had those slaves based on a loan. And she said a couple of times they went and retrieved slaves when they defaulted on their loans. They lying on the South. They didn't own nothing. The banks up north owned everything. The land, the cattle, the seed, the crops, and the slaves was owned by the banks in the Northeast. And they owned the railroad, and they owned all the towns across the country. They owned the whole United States, the banks in the East. They built the railroad. They built everything. They owned the oil. I guarantee you, even though they got the oil in Texas and New Orleans, Louisiana and all that, I guarantee you that the companies that owned it, Shell and all them, I guarantee you they was on the East. I guarantee you the oil rush and the gold rush was all funded by banks in the East. Guarantee you. They ain't telling the truth about slavery. And you know why? Because if they told the truth, we know exactly who to get our reparations from. And don't tell me they don't have the money. That's why they keep saying the government don't got the money. But the government don't owe the money. The banks owe the money. And guess what? The banks got the money. The banks got more than enough money to pay us reparations. But if the banks pay us reparations, they lose money because now we want what? We won't be getting cars on credit. We won't be financing cars. We won't be financing houses. We'll be paying straight out. And they lose money. I'm going to repeat that. The bank's the one that owe us reparations, and insurance companies on the East. They got the money to pay us, but that's not what they're worried about. When they pay us, they lose money because we won't have to finance anymore. And we'll open banks, and we'll become competitors, and we'll finance our own stuff. It's a threat to them. Think about how much money they lose if you don't have to finance. They don't sell cars. They make their money off of financing the car. They didn't sell slaves. They make their money off of financing slaves. They don't sell seeds for crops. They make their money off of financing seeds and crops. They even finance the clothes for the slave. They finance the medicine for the slave. They finance the property that the slave owners, the slave renters was on. Because they wasn't no damn slave owners. They was financing slaves. Them people didn't own nothing. So when they defaulted, they didn't need them no more. The North came down there to get their property, and they put an army together, the Confederate, to fight so they wouldn't get robbed after they did all that work and didn't have nothing to show for it. They pimped the South, the whites in the South. Blacks in the South need to stay out of that because you was just a slave. So when you talking about, oh, they lied, don't say they lying on the South because you ain't had nothing to do with that. You was property. They lying on whites that was in the South, but they ain't lying on the South because you blacks ain't got nothing to do with that. Why would you care? Why would you care? Why would you defend the South, the part of the South that had you as slaves? Don't defend that. But do understand that the North and the South had you enslaved. The North financed it, and the South was the workers. The South was the ones that did the whipping and the ones made you do the work. So you can't be talking about you love the South where they lynched you and whooped you and all that. They lynched you and whooped you down there. You trying to claim the South. How you claiming something you a slave from? You can claim your city as far as now, like, yeah, I represent this city, but we can't claim America, not no place that enslaved us. We can claim what we want and what we built, but we can't claim nothing once you go back to slavery when you didn't have no say-so. That don't make no sense. My people was from Alabama. Yeah, they were slaves in Alabama. So how much I want to claim slavery? Make it make some sense. How proud can I be of Alabama where that's where we were slaves at? How proud can I be up north when they the ones that financed it? We ain't trying to be proud of America. We try to get our money. Period. We got nothing to do with pride. Pay us for what you did to us, and we'll just, that's that. We ain't got no pride in no place that mistreated us. That sounds crazy. I don't got no pride in this country. That's why I don't never wear red, white, and blue. Once they made that red, white, and blue FBA, you don't never see me post no red, white, and blue FBA. Think about it. You ever seen me post that red, white, and blue FBA? Never. Never. When you seen me post the red, white, and blue FBA? Never. I'm not never representing no red, white, and blue. Never in my life. Never in my life. You already know the colors I post. I post black, red, and gold. I never post no. I never liked red, white, and blue. Once I found out the history, I ain't wearing no red, white, and blue. Pay me my reparations then. Don't worry about what color I'm wearing. I ain't wearing that. I ain't wearing that. You can forget that. I ain't under no red, white, and blue flag. Don't tell me no black man made it or nothing. That's the flag I suffered under. This the flag. This the flag. This the flag I honor that the black man made. Yeah, this the flag. It's the flag I'm repping. That's the flag I'm repping. Period. I ain't repping no, I don't wear no red, white, and blue. That ain't happening. I ain't against no brothers that wear it or pump it. I just ain't wearing it. Period. Yeah, I ain't wearing that. I ain't wearing no colors that I suffered under. This the colors I pump. I pumped the Black Heritage flag. There ain't no red, white, and blue. Once I found out all this history and stuff, you know what I'm saying? I ain't with no red, white, and blue. Period. My company logo, you see the colors. On my reparations movement and my company for reparations, you see the colors I'm repping. Pay Black Americans. Trademark. You see the R. You see the R? I'm going to keep it a Billy. I don't do no red, white, and blue. I don't do no 4th of July. I don't do none of that. I don't do Christmas. I don't do none of that. I ain't against you if you do it, though. I'm just standing on my own square. That's all. I ain't against you if you do it. I'm just standing on my own square. That's all. That's all. You know what I'm saying? That's all. You see what I'm pushing. You probably ain't paying no attention to colors I be using. It's a method to everything I do. I take everything serious. I don't want to have nothing to do with no red, white, and blue. I'll pledge allegiance to my reparations. We talk about the flag later. Pay me. All this you want me to honor a country that don't want to pay me. You talking crazy. You got to pay me. On my soul. And we have to wake up and get ourselves together. Mm-hmm. We got to wake up. Get ourselves together and make these people pay us, make these banks pay us. So when they come telling you about, oh, they don't got the money, they the taxes, that's all bull. They know doggone well that reparations ain't coming from taxes. They know it's coming from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and all them got to put that money together and put it up. They try to play with you and make you think, oh, that way they can get white people to go against it and tell them taxpayers got to pay it. How taxpayers got to pay something that the banks made all the money off of? Keep it $1 billion. How do taxpayers got to pay us for something that the banks made all the money off of? Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and all these insurance companies got to pay that. The government only got to pay a small portion for allowing them to do it. But the taxpayers ain't got to pay nothing. The taxpayers ain't got to pay nothing. All them companies made that money and still got it. They got that money. They got the money. They got logos and big corporations and hide the money, and you don't know how much, where the corporation or nothing is. Like, who owns this logo? They got the money. You ever notice there's a cotton logo, but they won't tell you the exact company that they had, the cotton company, but they got the logo? You ever notice they got a cotton logo, but the company is mysterious? You can't find the company. So there's a logo, but no company. Search the cotton company. I bet you can't find them. Tell me the people that own this logo don't owe us and don't have all the money. They made it off of cotton. However many trillions of dollars they owe, these people got 10 times that. Look it up. People name J.P. Morgan, they name bank. Nobody names the cotton company. Because the cotton company does not exist. But they got a logo. What y'all think about that? What y'all think about the cotton corporation that owns the logo is non-for-profit? Hold on. What y'all think about that being non-for-profit? They don't make no profits. Look, the Seal of Cotton logo is owned and promoted by Cotton Incorporated, a not-for-profit organization funded by American cotton producers. Introduced in 1973 to give cotton a brand identity and promote its natural qualities over synthetic fibers. The logo serves as a globally recognized symbol of quality, trust, and sustainability in texture products. So in 1973, when they realized we was going to be asking for reparations, they moved the company into a not-for-profit. So they're not making no money, but they represent cotton all over the world. What y'all think about that? I'm giving you game. What y'all think about that? What y'all think about that? See? And guess who made the most money in the country? Guess what made the most money? They called it King Cotton, the leader of all. This was the money maker. This was the leader of all industries, bigger than cattle, bigger than the railroad, bigger than oil, bigger than everything. King Cotton, the leader of all. That's how much money we made for this country. This was the number one industry in America. And the money is hidden because it's a not-for-profit. It's not for profit. So you can't sue them. They took all the money and put it in a not-for-profit. And is doing shell games, working with people for profit, but saying they're not getting none of the profit. But they own the logo. So you need to focus. You don't need to be beefing with no doggone Africans. But that and don't nobody know this, but everybody know the beef. Everybody know the beefing, but you don't know where your money's at, and you ain't standing on the people got the money. You arguing with an African that ain't got nothing. You spend all your time on the internet arguing with an African. Show me where that makes some sense. These people stole billions and billions of dollars from you, whites, but you on the internet arguing with the Africans. Make that make some type of sense. Make that make some type of sense. Like, okay, how is arguing with Africans gonna get you reparations? Make that make some type of sense. I mean, ask anybody out here and see if they give you an answer. Ask them, how is arguing with the Africans going to get reparations from white companies? I can't wait to hear the answer. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the answer to that. That's got to be a great answer. Don't make no sense to me. But I guess so. And we better get ourselves together. And that's the bottom line. We better get ourselves together. All right? Victory.